Hey guys, so yesterday on my Instagram stories, I recorded a video about choices, right? And I had such a response on my Instagram stories that I thought I should record a proper video. Now, realistically, I think the video that I did was just off the cuff. It was probably just really good. But unfortunately, with stories, it's all edited into like 5-second clips, which is a nightmare. So I'm going to talk about it again, but I guess realistically, it may be not as natural and maybe not as concise as it may have been on the story. So if you don't follow my stories, you should follow my stories. Anywho, the reason why I feel compelled to re-record this is one, because of the number of messages I had about it, but also just one of my friends' mums reached out to me and just said how important the video was, and I'll explain why that's relevant a bit later. But anyway, the video was about choices, right? So I was saying that the other day I was having this conversation with Byron about when I was, in my late teens, early 20s. I remember being surrounded by certain people who had the latest like Gucci handbag, Jimmy Choos, all the designer gear. And I remember thinking, oh wow, they got all that designer gear. And I didn't have, that level of designer gear. Now, I want to be clear, as I said in my video yesterday, like I was suitably dressed, like attired. My parents kept me well furnished in great clothes, and I had my own. I was at university, so I was doing uni. I had my, my maintenance loan. I was working, and my parents gave me money every now and again. So I had enough money, probably, realistically, if I really wanted to invest in those types of designer things. But I didn't. And instead I saved my money, and I saved my money, and it enabled me to, when I left university, age 22, I bought my first property, right? Because I had saved. And I'm not saying this because I want to be like, oh, braggy or whatever. I'm saying it because it's so important, the choices you make today and how that affects your life moving forward. And I feel like there's a lot of pressure to have the designer clothes, to have the drip, like to be wearing the most recent trainers or the biggest trainers, and not just to have one, but to have multiple pairs. And I just find it really interesting that, I'm talking about when I was in my 20s, and I did feel, I guess, envious at the time that they had these things. I could have bought those things, but I chose not to. And that's my point. It's about choices. And sometimes you have to make the sacrifice of not being the person in the it clothes, not feeling, as nice about yourself to affect your future you, right? So, and I say this like about my 20s, but realistically now when I'm out, like when I go out, and I see people who may be a similar age or younger than me, and they're wearing all the latest stuff, all the designers, right? And I think, wow, how do they afford all this stuff? And I know I could probably buy the stuff. Like I could make that choice to buy all the designer stuff. But instead, I choose to use my money in different ways. I choose to have a beautiful home. I choose to invest in my businesses. I choose to invest in the stock market and buy shares. I choose to have savings. I choose to be in a financial position that if something went wrong tomorrow, I would have enough money to sustain myself for a period of time. And that's a choice. And sometimes you have to sacrifice the things you want today to help you in the future. And the reason why I guess I'm re-recording this is when I was speaking to my friend's mum. Unfortunately, she's been diagnosed with cancer, and she was saying that the choices she made when she was in her 20s, when she bought her first property, then she had her children, then she had critical illness cover, those choices that she made along the way, instead of going out partying, I was laughing with her about the fact that I kind of missed my opportunity to do Napa and like Ibiza, although I know I can do like rich Ibiza, but you know what I mean, like regular Ibiza. I missed those opportunities, and she missed those opportunities too, but the result was that she was adequately protected and in a position now that, unfortunately, now that she has cancer, she still has her home. She has her investments, she has her insurance. And she was saying to me, where would she be now if she hadn't made those decisions? And although I'm not saying we're all going to be, in an unfortunate health predicament or anything like that, what I'm saying is that it's okay to not have all the designer gear. It's okay to make other choices. It's okay to make the choices that work for you. Now, I'm not slating designer stuff. If you know me, if you follow me, you can probably know that I've got far too many shoes and bags and other things. Like I'm a shopaholic. I like stuff, right? But I'm not buying that stuff and sacrificing other things that are more important. I'm not sacrificing the foundations, and it's okay to make sacrifices and to not go out as much or not buy that latest thing so that you can support the future you, I think is what I'm getting at. So yeah, anyway, just really interesting. And I just think so many of you reached out and said, yeah, do you know what, Bianca, you're right. My cousin reached out to me. He never reaches out to me. He usually messages my mum about the stupid things I'm doing on Instagram. But he reached out and was like, Bianca, you're so right. And now I'm thinking about it. Do I need that second pair of ex-designer trainers or should I wait? And sometimes it's about that delayed gratification. I know now we live in like a instant gratification society where you can order something today that gets there today or tomorrow. But sometimes you can delay that gratification, work really hard, save up the money, maybe do the investments now, and then you can buy more of that stuff later. Like that stuff is never going to go away, but just think about what you're doing. And if any of my like investment mentees are watching, they'll probably say, or alternatively, invest in designer goods that appreciate in value. But that's not the point of my video today. But obviously, if you are going to invest in some designer goods, think about the ones that are going to be an asset as opposed to a liability. Anyway, choices. Make the choices that work for you. Don't be afraid to sacrifice the things you want right now for the things that you'll need in the future. And make sure you're thinking about your future self. I will probably do a video about wills, powers of attorney, life insurance and stuff, because I think it's something that we really often overlook and we think it's something that only older or old people need to consider, but it definitely is not. It's something that everyone needs to consider, and it's about protecting yourself but also protecting your family. And yeah, I'll talk about that in another video. But anyway, choices. What choice will you make today to help your future? Okay, bye guys.